From the moment the humans first drifted into the outer sectors, our sensors detected them as anomalies, tiny, frail vessels weaving through the void like fireflies in a storm. The Exilar Dominion cataloged their trajectory, their biology, their patterns of communication, and dismissed them. Laughable, primitive, ineffectual. Yet, in the midst of what should have been another routine scouting sortie, I observed something that no algorithm, no archive could predict: adaptability. The human craft darted among the jagged asteroids, hull groaning against the pressures of impact. Debris clawed at their shields, but they moved with a grace that betrayed intention. The captain, female, mid-cycle by human standards, eyes burning like twin stars, shouted commands that seemed erratic to an alien observer, chaotic even. And yet every order produced flawless coordination. Micro-repairs executed mid-flight, evasive maneuvers executed with precision, and an uncanny anticipation of environmental hazards. I recorded their audacity, the sheer defiance of survival against forces that would have shredded any other species. Every system I had cataloged, every tactical expectation I held, unraveled before me. These humans did not merely react, they adapted. Tools we considered insufficient became instruments of ingenuity. Desperation transformed into strategy. Fear transformed into something almost intoxicating, a radiance of willpower that illuminated the void around them. Our intelligence had misjudged them entirely. Their biology was fragile, their technology rudimentary. Yet beneath these vulnerabilities lay a spark no calculations could contain. Could these fragile beings endure a confrontation on the scale of our fleets? We believed not. And yet, even as I observed, doubt seeped into the command deck. A small victory here, a minor innovation there, and the human's presence began to ripple through the Dominion's perception like a silent tremor. The galaxy, ancient and vast, had never witnessed a species capable of bending probability with sheer determination. And as the human vessel disappeared behind an asteroid belt, leaving trails of light like a comet in rebellion, an unease settled among my crew. These creatures, they were no mere survivors, they were harbingers of chaos. I filed the report with a hesitation I had never known, a shadow of dread forming across the Dominion's meticulous records. Humanity had entered the void. And in that instant, the universe itself seemed to whisper, "We have underestimated them." The sensors flared. An unexpected spike of energy erupted from the belt, signaling the human vessel had re-emerged, faster, smarter, braver. And I realized, as the void stretched before us, that what we thought was a simple anomaly was the first sign of a reckoning yet to come. The outer colonies had always been peripheral to the Dominion, minor holdings to secure resources and maintain control. We expected little resistance there. Yet when our fleets descended, expecting the usual compliance, what we encountered was something entirely alien, a storm of human defiance. Their fleets were fragile, scattered, and technologically inferior by every conventional metric. Our cruisers, bristling with weapons and shielding, should have annihilated them with ease. But the humans did not flee. They did not beg for mercy. They fought. And how they fought! Each vessel moved with reckless brilliance, darting between our formations, disappearing into the void, only to reappear where we least anticipated. Their pilots exhibited a daring that would have been suicidal for any other species. Yet it worked. Every gamble paid dividends. I observed a human commander, mid-strike, orchestrate a maneuver that defied logic. With a handful of ships, they lured a Dominion squadron into the heart of a nebula. Energy readings fluctuated as magnetic pulses ignited along preset nodes, and one by one, our vessels succumbed. 3 cruisers disabled before we fully understood the trap. The human ships danced around the wreckage, unscathed, their tiny hulls bearing the scars of close calls that should have ended them. Their joy in survival Pure, unrestrained, almost intoxicating, echoed across comms in shrill laughter that no silence of space could smother. Their tactics were not limited to the physical. Psychological warfare was wielded like a scalpel. Decoys, feints, unpredictable attack patterns. They unsettled our most disciplined commanders, forcing them into mistakes we had never imagined they would make. Entire systems fell, not because their technology matched ours, which it often did not, but because their will was indomitable. Each colony liberated, each fleet outmaneuvered, became a ripple that undermined our confidence, eroded our certainty. I noted, with a mixture of awe and dread, that humans treated death as a tool rather than a threat. Casualties were tragic, but never paralyzing. Failure was a lesson, not a verdict. Where our species relied on calculations and probability, humans relied on intuition, improvisation, and the terrifying audacity of risk. Their innovations were forged in desperation, their strategies born from the pressure of survival rather than tradition or doctrine. The fires of war spread across the void like wildfire. Sensors registered the flicker of their vessels moving through asteroid belts, nebulae, and radiation zones, territories we had thought impossible to navigate with functional precision. Each engagement became a classroom, a demonstration that probability was a suggestion rather than a law. And with every human victory, our own fleets recoiled, our morale fracturing in ways that had no precedent. We began to fear them, not as a species, not yet, but as a phenomenon. The more we sought to suppress them, the more resilient they became. We underestimated them at every turn. Their colonies were simultaneously fragile and unyielding. Their crews resourceful beyond measure. I recorded the panic of Dominion commanders as they struggled to predict the unpredictable, noting with growing alarm that the humans seemed to thrive precisely where others would have perished. And yet, it was not merely the tactical genius that unnerved us. It was the spirit that radiated from them, something no calculations could measure. In the heart of battle, where death circled like vultures, humans smiled, laughed, and hurled themselves into impossible odds with a confidence that bordered on madness. For all our preparation, all our weapons, all our doctrine, the humans had turned combat into a performance of pure willpower, a revelation that was terrifying and intoxicating in equal measure. We plotted our retaliation, our revenge, but even in our planning chambers, a creeping admiration grew. Perhaps, we admitted reluctantly, these fragile beings might endure where countless others had failed. Perhaps the galaxy itself had misjudged them. And as the smoke of destroyed cruisers drifted through the void, the echo of human laughter resonated like a bell of reckoning. The fires of war had begun, and I realized, with a cold dread, that the humans were not merely surviving, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson in defiance, a lesson that even the Dominion might not survive to forget. Sensors flared again. A fleet we had presumed scattered, reformed, coordinated, and advanced with terrifying precision. The void was alive with human ingenuity, and I felt the first true tremor of fear that no Dominion weapon could soothe. The war had only begun. The day the humans shattered the First Fleet began like any other in the Outer Rim. Routine patrols, calculated strikes, predictable maneuvers. From my observation post on the edge of the Scolari Rift, I anticipated an easy engagement. I did not anticipate a lesson in audacity. The human vessels moved with deliberate unpredictability, weaving through asteroid fields with a grace that mocked physics itself. Their engines flared and dimmed in ways that suggested improvisation, yet every maneuver had purpose. Gravitational anomalies that would have crushed lesser species were their playground. They exploited the forces we had long considered fatal. Each human ship became a missile of defiance, a vessel designed not merely to survive, but to rewrite the rules of engagement. We inflicted losses, as we always do. Our lasers tore through hulls, our missiles ruptured shields. But each victory we celebrated became fuel for their ingenuity. Command structures adapted in real time, communications shifted mid-combat, and strategies evolved faster than our algorithms could track. The more we pressed, the more unpredictable they became, and with each step, our confidence frayed. Our greatest fear was not technology, it was audacity. They did not retreat in despair, they transformed despair into opportunity. When cornered, humans discovered angles, vulnerabilities, and openings invisible to us. Entire death traps became instruments of victory. I watched as one squadron led our forces into a canyon of shifting debris, only to reverse the pursuit, turning our advantage into catastrophe. Ships that should have been destroyed emerged intact, their crews laughing, shouting orders, improvising repairs mid-flight. Whispers spread across the sector, even within our ranks. The humans are different, fragile yet indestructible, small yet capable of toppling empires. Entire planets murmured the legend of their courage, their refusal to bow under pressure, their brilliance in survival. What we had once considered an anomaly was becoming a systemic threat. As the First Fleet crumbled under relentless assaults and impossibly daring maneuvers, I realized the true horror. We had miscalculated entirely. These humans were not bound by convention or expectation. They mocked centuries of strategy, thriving where logic dictated failure. Our superiors trembled as reports poured in from every corner of the skirmish. If these fragile beings could rise from nothing to dominate even a single sector, what might they do next? The question hung in the void like a specter. And then, the humans, tiny points of light against the darkness of space, reformed, regrouped, and advanced again, faster, smarter, unstoppable. The First Fleet was broken, and I understood in that chilling moment that the galaxy would never be the same. The Dominion had believed that overwhelming force would crush humanity's scattered colonies. Entire worlds were catalogued as lost before we even struck, our mightiest weapons deployed with clinical precision. Yet, the humans responded in ways that defied every projection. Entire planets became fortresses overnight. Craters, once scars of bombardment, were transformed into strongholds. Radiation zones, lethal to most species, became shields. And civilians, fragile, untrained, yet unbreakable, became soldiers, their ferocity eclipsing that of seasoned veterans. One planet, once deemed irretrievable, was reclaimed in a single night by fewer than a dozen ships. From orbit, I watched in disbelief as these tiny vessels danced between orbital bombardments, guiding ground forces with precision, improvising tactics in ways no Dominion strategist could anticipate. Calculations shattered, probability became meaningless. Lives, expendable yet invaluable in execution, were marshaled with an efficiency that mocked our rigid sense of value. Every maneuver, every counterattack was an education in chaos transformed into order. The humans' resilience was infectious. Even colonies untouched by direct assault felt it. Defiance rippled across the stars like a silent contagion, unsettling our commanders and undermining morale. Observing the Dominion fleet, I could see the subtle tremors of fear spreading. We had long assumed that survival dictated caution. The humans taught us otherwise. Desperation could be wielded like a blade, survival could be a doctrine, and fear could be turned into strategy. There was a sinister beauty in their destruction. Humans did not merely fight, they redefined combat itself. Every loss, every setback was transformed into opportunity. Entire fleets recalibrated to account for unpredictability that no sensor could anticipate. Calculations shattered, probability became meaningless. Lives, expendable yet invaluable in execution, were marshaled with an efficiency that mocked our rigid sense of value. Every maneuver, every counterattack was an education in chaos transformed into order. The humans' resilience was infectious. Even colonies untouched by direct assault felt it. Defiance rippled across the stars like a silent contagion, unsettling our commanders and undermining morale. Observing the Dominion fleet, I could see the subtle tremors of fear spreading. We had long assumed that survival dictated caution. The humans taught us otherwise. Desperation could be wielded like a blade. Survival could be a doctrine, and fear could be turned into strategy. There was a sinister beauty in their destruction. Humans did not merely fight, they redefined combat itself. Every loss, every setback was transformed into opportunity. Entire fleets recalibrated to account for unpredictability that no sensor could anticipate.
Our ships, designed for precision, faltered against improvisation. Our greatest weapons became liabilities. The rules of engagement, rigid, codified, absolute, were rewritten in real time, in ways that should have been impossible. As I recorded these events, orbiting above worlds that had been deemed lost, awe bordered on terror. These humans, fragile, puny, yet relentless, were no longer mere curiosities of the cosmos. They were a reckoning, a storm that swept through space, overturning assumptions, dismantling empires, and rewriting the balance of power. Their courage radiated through the void, a beacon that illuminated the failure of the Dominion's arrogance. And yet, even in witnessing their brilliance, there was a lingering dread. Every plan we devised was met with innovation. Every assault countered. Every victory tenuous. It was as if humanity itself had learned to anticipate the galaxy, to bend the cosmos around the shape of its will. The Dominion's fleet, once confident in supremacy, faltered under this relentless tide. Sensors flared with the movement of human squads, small, fragile, and yet devastating. Reports from multiple sectors spoke of planets reclaimed overnight, fleets broken in a matter of hours, and defiance that seemed inexhaustible. From my post, helpless yet compelled to watch, I realized the truth. Humanity was no longer simply surviving. They were imposing a new order, one that we had neither predicted nor could contain. And in that realization, I felt the first true tremor of fear that no strategy, no weapon could suppress. The void itself seemed to pulse with the audacity of these creatures, and as human fleets regrouped, advancing with precision that should have been impossible, I understood. This was no battle. This was a reckoning. The galaxy itself had never seen a force like this, a species capable of turning desperation into triumph and despair into opportunity. The Dominion would learn, as I did, that humanity did not merely endure, they dominated, and their storm had only just begun. The nebulae of Varnus stretched before us like a swirling tempest of gas and light, its beauty hiding the dangers we had long considered impassable. Our strike force, the elite of the Dominion, had been dispatched to crush the human coalition, decisively, irrevocably. We expected annihilation. What we witnessed instead was something that defied every assumption, every doctrine, every calculation. Human ships moved through the nebula with deliberate unpredictability, their small silhouettes darting among ion storms and eddies of charged gas. They deployed decoys that shimmered like spectral duplicates, cloaked vessels that vanished into the haze, and psychological ploys that shredded coordination among our commanders. One false retreat drew a battalion of our cruisers into a swirling vortex. We anticipated a collapse of their morale. Instead, the humans turned the trap back on us, disabling our leading vessels with precision strikes and improvised gravitational manipulation. The chaos was absolute, yet the humans navigated it with astonishing clarity, as though they understood the nebula not as an obstacle but as an ally. Every assault we launched was met with a counterstrike that seemed impossible. Missiles evaporated before reaching their targets. Shields were circumvented by tactics we could not predict. Even our most sophisticated algorithms failed to account for their improvisation. And all the while, the human commanders laughed, not in frivolity, but in the fierce, unrelenting joy of survival. It was maddening to witness, disorienting in a way that penetrated even the most disciplined minds among our fleet.
One pilot stood out, a human barely 20 standard years old. Alone in a scout vessel, he executed maneuvers that would have doomed any other crew. He danced through magnetic turbulence, dodged plasma torrents, and exploited blind spots in our targeting systems, all while coordinating strikes that disabled 2 of our cruisers in rapid succession. The reports that followed painted him as reckless, but to witness it firsthand was to see mastery born of intuition, risk, and an unquenchable will to endure. His actions became legend, not just among humans, but across Dominion intelligence channels, whispered like a warning in every command room. It was then I realized the truth we had long refused to admit. Humans are not to be measured by strength, numbers, or technology alone. Their essence lies in unpredictability, ingenuity, and sheer force of will. Where we relied on superiority, they relied on adaptability. Where we assumed fear, they cultivated courage bordering on madness. And where we expected surrender, they demanded victory, bending circumstance itself to their advantage. Our fleet, once confident in victory, now struggled under a tide we could neither anticipate nor halt. The human coalition moved not as isolated vessels, but as a living organism, coordinated yet unpredictable, its strikes forming a wave that broke through our defenses again and again. Entire squadrons faltered, commanders questioned assumptions they had never questioned before, and our calculations, once infallible, collapsed under the weight of human audacity. Reports streamed in from across the nebula. Small contingents had turned ambushes into victories. Planets once deemed lost were retaken. Ships that should have been destroyed emerged unscathed, their crews exhilarated rather than broken. The humans were not merely surviving, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson in defiance. And the more we tried to suppress them, the more resilient they became. I watched from my observation post as the young pilot coordinated another series of maneuvers that drew our flagship into a labyrinth of ion storms. One by one, we lost positional advantage. Sensors flared in confusion. Communications were jammed by tactics so simple yet so effective they bordered on genius. The Dominion's confidence cracked, revealing a vulnerability we had never known. By the time the humans disengaged, their small fleet intact and reorganizing, our forces had been left battered and demoralized. The realization settled over every commander like ice. We were no longer the hunters. We were being studied, challenged, and outmaneuvered by a species we had dismissed as fragile and inconsequential. A wave had begun in Varnus, a tide of human ingenuity and unyielding will that threatened to sweep across every sector of the galaxy. Each victory, each audacious maneuver became part of a larger pattern, an unstoppable, unrelenting force that the Dominion could no longer contain. And in that moment, from my vantage among the stars, I understood with chilling clarity. The humans had not merely survived, they had turned the tide. The galaxy itself was on the verge of a reckoning. The siege of the Dominion's capital sector began under the assumption of inevitability. Our fleets, perfected over centuries, were deployed with precision and confidence. Every battle plan, every weapon calibration, every contingency had been calculated. We expected compliance. We expected submission. We expected victory. We were wrong. The humans arrived not as desperate survivors, but as a force transformed, coordinated, and terrifying in its ingenuity. From the outer systems to orbital command stations, every fleet, every squadron, even those unarmed, played a role in a meticulous assault that left our forces scrambling in disbelief. Strategic sabotage tore apart our communications, guerrilla offensives fractured our supply lines, and psychological warfare rendered our best commanders uncertain of friend from foe. The capital sector, once a symbol of invincibility, became a stage for chaos orchestrated with terrifying precision. It was as though the galaxy itself had recognized the rise of something beyond comprehension. Human forces moved in unpredictable patterns, exploiting vulnerabilities we hadn't even noticed existed.
Entire star systems fell, not because of technological superiority, which was often lacking, but because humanity embodied a principle the Dominion had never encountered: an unflinching willingness to risk everything, to endure every loss, to strike with unwavering purpose. They did not fight for survival alone, they fought to redefine it. From my observation post, orbiting the once mighty capital, I witnessed fleets dismantled by tactics that seemed almost impossible. Human vessels utilized decoys, magnetic interference, and unpredictable attack vectors, turning the full might of the Dominion back upon itself. Even civilians became instruments of war, coordinating with precision to sabotage supply lines, misdirect reinforcements, and amplify the confusion. The mask of civility was gone, the veneer of weakness shattered. Humanity had revealed itself fully, relentless, unyielding, and terrifyingly inventive. The capital's command towers crumbled under coordinated bombardments and sabotage. Defensive fleets were systematically outmaneuvered. I observed the faces of Dominion leaders in holoviews, their expressions frozen in disbelief and quiet terror. All their centuries of dominance, all their meticulously honed strategies were irrelevant against creatures who calculated risk not by fear, but by will. The humans did not merely fight, they rewrote the rules of engagement in real time, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity, every setback into an instrument of victory. Fear, awe, and reluctant respect mingled in my mind as I recorded these events. The humans had crossed a threshold that no other species had. Survival was no longer their benchmark. They had demonstrated total war, total adaptability, and an unbreakable resolve to dominate. Fear, awe, and reluctant respect mingled in my mind as I recorded these events.
The Dominion, for all its power, was reduced to reaction, scrambling to survive against an enemy that could not be contained, predicted, or measured by conventional metrics. From orbit, I could see the pattern of human victory spreading like wildfire. Systems previously considered lost were reclaimed. Fleets thought destroyed were reorganized. Entire sectors were left in chaos, and yet the humans moved with purpose, deliberate in their destruction and surgical in their strikes. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense, nor were they motivated by conquest alone. They were architects of a new order, teaching the galaxy that true strength lay not in firepower, but in ingenuity, resilience, and audacity. By the end of the siege, the Dominion's capital lay in ruins, its fleet scattered, its leaders demoralized, and the galaxy forever changed. Humanity had dropped the mask. They were no longer just a species, they were a reckoning. They had shown us that survival alone was insufficient, that true dominance required courage, invention, and an unrelenting will. And as I recorded the devastation, I understood with a cold, undeniable clarity: the galaxy would never again underestimate them. The humans had revealed their essence, and in their wake we were left to confront a species that could not be predicted, contained, or destroyed. The void itself seemed to tremble under their influence. Total war had been declared, not merely as a contest of ships or technology, but as a statement of will. And from the silence that followed the storm, one truth rang clear: humanity would not merely survive, they would dominate. The Dominion lay in ruins, its fleet shattered, its command structures fractured, and its leaders scattered into hiding across the remnants of their once mighty empire. From my vantage in orbit above the capital's smoking remains, I observed a galaxy in transformation. Humanity, the species we had once dismissed as fragile and inconsequential, moved not as conquerors, but as architects of a new order. They did not gloat. They did not impose dominion through fear or terror. Instead, they rebuilt, reorganized, and inspired. Systems once enslaved now witnessed reconstruction led by human ingenuity. Colonies, previously paralyzed by oppression, were guided into renewal by a species whose resilience radiated a quiet authority. Where we expected domination, they offered collaboration.
Where we anticipated despair, they instilled hope.
Their victories were not mere acts of conquest. They were lessons in endurance, in innovation, in the indomitable will to persevere against impossible odds. Observing these efforts, I realized that humanity had transformed survival itself into a doctrine, a philosophy, and a blueprint for existence that transcended technology and biology alike. Galactic hierarchies trembled as old empires recalculated their place in the cosmos. New alliances formed, not out of fear, but out of recognition. The humans could not be defeated through conventional means. Their audacity became a model, whispered among civilizations that dared not admit admiration openly. Across countless star systems, their influence rippled, not as a threat alone, but as a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down before every species that claimed mastery of the stars. In the silence of space, where once our dominance had felt unchallenged, the echo of their victories resonated. Small colonies that had survived the wars now thrived, implementing human methods of organization, improvisation, and collaboration. Human fleets, though few in number, moved with precision, coordination, and creativity that defied any metric of measurement. Courage and ingenuity had become weapons as formidable as any plasma cannon or orbital bombardment. I observed civilians taking the lead in reconstruction, pilots teaching new tactics to fledgling fleets, scientists sharing knowledge across worlds. Humanity's victories had evolved into something far greater than military triumphs. They had become a template for survival, an education for the galaxy itself. Other species began to recognize that strength alone was insufficient. The human model fused audacity, adaptability, and relentless will into a force that could not be anticipated or contained. It was in this period, in the quiet aftermath of cataclysm, that I understood their true nature. They had transcended the ordinary limitations of biology, of technology, of strategy. They had forged a synthesis of courage, intellect, and perseverance that no species before them had ever achieved. The galaxy would remember the days when humans dropped the mask, the days they revealed total war not as mere destruction, but as a testament to the unbreakable spirit of life itself. Even in the void silence, their influence reverberated. Systems long forgotten were revitalized. New colonies flourished. Fleets, once feared as fragile, became beacons of hope and innovation.
From my observation post, I could see civilizations studying human methods, adapting human resilience. Their legacy had become both a warning and a marvel, proof that survival was only the beginning, that ingenuity and willpower could bend the universe itself. Humanity had not only endured the impossible, they had redefined it. They had become a force of legend, their name whispered across star systems as a symbol of audacity, courage, and relentless perseverance. The galaxy would never forget the fire they left in their wake. And in that fire, I realized with awe and trepidation, humanity had become more than a species. They had become an idea, an inevitability, a living testament to the unyielding potential of life itself.